All right, guys, welcome to Culture Couch Live. So my usual companions, Murph, Jerry, and Woz. How are you, boys? You good?
Is that bloke down in the bottom left-hand corner, is he?
All right, so we're going to introduce our newest member of Performance by Design. So Misso is currently doing a leadership course, because I'm fascinated to have a listen to that as well. But Misso and I first met at the Sydney Swans. So briefly, Misso, just give us an idea of what you've done, but probably more importantly, the common themes that you picked up through your great sporting background.
Yeah, thanks, Reece. Great to be here. Yeah, look, I've been involved in sport for a long time. Obviously, initially with the Australian cricket team, and then jumped into the Swans, and I've been exposed to AFL teams for nearly 20 years now. And probably right along my journey, the leadership model and teamwork model has been that sort of, behaviour and accountability system that we talk about all the time. And it's something for me in the 25 years I've been involved in sport that has really shown me that it gets results, because it turns words into actions, because the people who are out there delivering on the field are the ones who are actually determining what behaviours they'll accept and won't accept. So for me, jumping into PBD, especially in the corporate area, has been something that I've really, really enjoyed, because there's been a lot of, similarities with what I'm learning through my Masters of Leadership through Deakin. So really, jumping into the corporate area and bringing my sort of sporting background has been a great opportunity for me to roll out the learnings that I've had for the last 25 years.
Right. And Misso, tell us about someone. Who do you admire? Who's a person that you've worked with, that you know personally, that you admire, and for demonstrating those leadership and qualities?
Yeah, Jez, I think I have to go back nearly 25 years to when I worked with Steve Waugh.
Okay.
He got given the captaincy after Mark Taylor in the end of 1998, and had a really tough first tour to the West Indies. That was the tour where he had to drop Shane Warne from a deciding Test match. But it's probably more, the public perception of Steve Waugh was that he was the Iceman, and he didn't have a lot of empathy, and it couldn't be further from the truth. He stepped into the role as leader, and a bit similar to Roosie actually when he took over as coach, but he sat down and thought about, well, what were the things that I didn't like as a player from the leaders that were leading me as a young player. And one of the biggest things was he felt that if you got selected to be in the Australian Test team, that you were good enough to contribute to strategy and culture. And so it didn't matter how old or young you were, he still wanted people to have their say if they felt that they should, and to sort of step up and really take ownership of the culture of the team.
Fantastic. Great.
What about, before I hand over to Woz, so in terms of the leadership program you're doing at the moment at Deakin, you mentioned it. So what is there anything that surprised you out of that? Because you've got an extensive background in sport. You mentioned Steve Waugh. You and I work together. Rossi Lyon, you work with as well, has been really successful with St Kilda and Freo. Was there anything that surprised you with the course?
I think the thing that, and it probably just stood out like a beacon to me, is that leadership's a skill. And it's like, any sporting skill, a handball, a kick, learning how to, play a forward defensive. You've actually got to work at it. And what we notice both, I think particularly in corporate, is leaders get promoted because of their technical expertise, but they're not given any real grounding or development from a leadership point of view. So they're thrust into these leadership roles, and just because they're good at what they do, they're expected to be good leaders as well. And that's the thing that's been most glaring for me doing this course, is that leadership really is a skill that needs to be honed and developed and nurtured. And I don't think it's done well enough, either at a sporting or a corporate level.
So, Misso, in terms of that space, like going into leaders who haven't been sort of given that training to be good leaders inside the organisation, what do you think the sort of key challenges are, and how do you think you sort of solve that, taking that person on a journey? Because it must have been sometimes people are in leadership positions and maybe not being so successful, but also sometimes people are in leadership positions and being successful, but maybe not also because of their behaviour and how they operate?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, the key to being a great leader is self-awareness. So, really taking the leaders on that journey to learn about themselves, and then to understand that they don't need to be someone else. They just need to be themselves, but build their leadership capabilities around that. So that probably first and foremost. But the other thing is just realising the influence they have as role models over the rest of their team. And, understanding that influence can often frame a context for them where, they then have to think about, well, how am I behaving, and what are the values that I'm living day to day, and what's the sort of culture that I want to build within my team.
It's a difficult skill, though, Misso, isn't it? Like, it's easy to say, be yourself, but take stuff from other people that you like. But that is a very, very hard thing to do. And so, how do you advise people to actually do that? Because you can get lost. I see lots of leaders get lost because then they're not really sure about which bits to take and which not.
Yeah, no, that's another great question. No, I think sometimes, Jez, it's trial and error. Sometimes you go home at the end of the day and reflect on a couple of decisions or conversations you've had, and you think, well, I could have done that a fair bit better. But I think an important thing is to have a good mentor. I think that's a really important aspect, especially for new and emerging leaders.
Yeah.
Is to choose someone to go to and ask for really honest feedback, and that's obviously an important part of our process.
It's probably sorry, Miss, it's probably a good question for you too, Ruzi. Like, you were a guy starting out. How did you hold the line? How did you know when you were drifting off and what was right or wrong? Because there must have been times when you were like, I don't know if this is going exactly how I thought. What do I do?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? I think I had a formula in my mind. I think that's really important, Miss. So it's to sort of have a plan. But I reckon you touched on it really well, is to audit yourself regularly. Did I have a good day today? Did I not have a good day today? And putting advisors around you that you really trust, and not ones that are just going to tell you yes all the time. It's ones that, I was lucky to have Andrew Ireland. I was lucky to have, John Longmire, Steve Malaxos, George Stone. So guys that could actually tell me when I was having a bad day. And I think through the system we put in place with Misso being there, even the players, I think that's probably one of the hardest things, Misso, to be a leader, isn't it? To understand you don't need to know everything. And that's, yep. I mean, the number of times we talk to leadership teams and we sort of say, do you guys see yourself as a team? If you do, help each other. And I think that's one of the really good things about a team sport. You generally get really good help from your assistant coaches and from your fitness guys, from your doctors and things like that. So I think that team aspect, Misso, is really important. Probably a follow-up question to that, Misso, is an achievement. I mean, you've done a lot of things that, most people sort of dream of. You've had some amazing jobs. What do you think is the greatest achievement, and what led to that, do you think?
Yeah, I sort of reflect back and again, obviously, the Swannies in 2005 and the journey we sort of went on there, which was really a 3-year journey from 2003. And we had a great team of players. But to me, what it highlighted was the team behind the team. We had a great high performance medical team, and we really saw ourselves as a team within a team. And importantly, we really challenged each other within our own walls, like, when we had meetings. But again, it was critical that when we walked out of our meeting room, we were united. When we came and spoke to you, if there was a decision about an injured player, and it was obvious that, the coaches were really desperate for this guy to play, and we felt, no, he needed a week or another 2 weeks. We were really strong on that. And, we didn't go out individually and say to you, well, I actually wanted him to play, but the others voted against me. But I think what's really important is something I've noticed in the corporate area is those sub-teams, the teams behind the teams being really strong and being really united and aligned and connected. And to me, that was a feature of, the ultimate in 2005, but to me, it was a 3-year journey, building and aligning those teams, coaches, recruitment, high performance medical and the admin teams.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? As I sit here listening to that, Miss and Murph and Woz, I'll bring you in. It's funny, isn't it? One of the things we have sometimes problems with is that marketing team and the head of marketing, looking at it from a fitness point of view, has trouble then putting their executive team hat on. So I think you're right, Miss. So what you guys were really good at was, here's our medical fitness team. We make a decision. Now we're actually going in, but we understand we're part of the coaching team now. And now we have to put our coaching. It's an interesting point, Murph, isn't it? Because it's one of the biggest sort of challenges we face, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the most difficult thing in corporate teams, no doubt, and was it I know you would face as well, is getting your different departments lined up. Like for some reason, they don't think they're part of the same team. They operate in their own silos. It's like if I had a dollar, Ruzi, for every time I heard the word silo in a briefing meeting with the CEO, I'd be the wealthiest man in Australia. I'd be richer than Gina. And so, like, the truth is, we have to get departments working cross-functionally. And as one of our great leaders from Vocus, Andrew Wildbite, he says if we can work that out, Murph, then you are going to make a lot of money. So I think that's, I don't know, Woz, you're part of it. You find the same?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, everyone, it becomes easy to blame, specifically if you've got a strong team in those swim lanes. It's easier to blame another department. So if you're not working on that, it's basically, the reason why we didn't hit that deadline is because those guys didn't do their part of the job on time. And so unless you're getting that cross-section analysis as a leader to work on it and also identify whether it's actually the individuals in that team or the one on the other team itself. You may not necessarily have all the data, but the relationships is key for sure. But they just definitely don't work on it, and it's something that we work on a lot in the organisation, Mecon Labs, for sure.
I think also role clarity, Miss. I was just going to ask you about that. I think when I reflect back on the Swans, and as I moved to Melbourne, I mean, it's so important, role clarity, isn't it? So everyone knows exactly who's doing what. Doesn't mean you don't help each other out. I think that was another factor. But how big of that is that role clarity in your journey?
Yeah, it's massive because, as you get more experience and gather more expertise, you obviously get exposed to a cross-section of different skills. And by the end of my journey in the AFL, I don't have a doctor's degree, but, I could pretty much, diagnose a lot of stuff that came into the doctor's room, but I'm not going to tell the doctor how to do his job. But I'm going to still offer my opinion because, I've got 20 years of experience that I've seen, come down the line. But it is, I think, something that Lencioni talks about, the 5 dysfunctions of a team, but he talks about the fact that people are going to disagree. And when a decision is made, and leaders do have to make decisions, sometimes you don't agree with the decision. But as long as you feel like you've had the ability to offer your opinion and your opinion's been heard and potentially been discussed, you, for the good of the team, should put your own individual self-interest aside and say, well, yep, that's the decision that's been made and I've got to cop that.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to wrap it up because it's one of my biggest pet hates.
I was going to wrap it up. I was going to wrap it up there, Breezy.
You can keep going, Murph.
I've got more to ask Miso.
No problems.
We've talked about all the good things, Miso. Tell us about a time when it hasn't worked so well, a time of adversity in your life.
Yeah, look, it's probably like adversity and another achievement wrapped into one. So when we won the World Cup with the Australian cricket team in '99, is that great picture of everyone on the balcony at Lords and, we beat Pakistan pretty easily. But that was the culmination of that team being away for 5 months. And, we started in the West Indies. And as I said, that was Stephen's first tour as a captain. He had to drop one of Australia's greatest ever cricketers from a deciding test match. And, the ramifications of that are still being seen today, that they don't talk much and they haven't got a great relationship. But then we went straight to England for the World Cup. Like, I was away from my kids for 5 months.
Yeah, wow.
Didn't see them at all. And we went through a pretty tough time when we went to the World Cup. We didn't perform very well. We nearly got knocked out in the initial stages. We managed to pull it together. So that was a great achievement. But I remember coming home from that, and after all the celebrations, we went down to Canberra and went to the lodge with John Howard and his wife and, had a street parade in Sydney. But I vividly remember walking to pick my son up from school after not seeing him for 5 months, and I just burst into tears as soon as I saw him, because you just realise the enormity of what you've given up to work with a sporting team. So yeah, it was a combination of achievement and adversity, but it was a pretty emotional time.
Was it worth it?
Yeah, that's a good share, mate. Well done.
It was worth it. Yeah,
It was worth it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well done, mate. That's terrific. Yeah, look, and mate, welcome, and we're really excited. I think Murph and Woz, you both agree. I mean, the skill set that Misso brings to us is probably unprecedented. The ability to be in such a high performing space, but then it shows the character of Misso to go back to school and to go back to learning and to really push himself into a field that probably is not as familiar with. Being a fitness guy and been through that whole journey. So Misso, we're really excited. I'm learning a lot in our workshops around those learnings that you're getting through Deakin, and I know you're excited to do a lot more workshops, but also I'm sure to finish the course, mate, because you're probably a bit sick of studying as well, are you?
Yeah, I got one little mini thesis to go, so I can't wait to finish it.
It's a mini thesis, mate. That's a paradox in its own right.
That's right, exactly.
No, well done, mate. Great to have you on board, and we're looking forward to working with you for many, many years. Thanks, guys. Weekend looks like the sun's out. Looks like you can head down the beach with the kids, get the surf mat out.
Yeah, I'm going out in half an hour after this. Pick the kids up.
Half an hour.
I can't, Reggie. I can't. I've had an afterscope yesterday.
I was just going to say you got the bung wheel, so you're pretty much
I'm on the
done
couch,
for the weekend.
On the couch watching Vikings. I tell you one thing I do want to do is I want to do a bit of gratitude. One thing, as you're lying on the trolley getting wheeled in, you do realise how good our health system is. Yeah. And I know we criticise it at times. And you do realise how vulnerable you are, and it is the ultimate in vulnerability. Getting wheeled into the theatre, and I'm really grateful for the medical staff and the nurses, and they've had a really difficult 12 months. But gee, they do an amazing job when you have to go in and be part of the system. So
yeah, here, well said, mate.
Absolutely.
I've probably had half a dozen to 8 operations, and every time quality doctors, nurses, staff, etc. So great shout out, mate. Well done. Right, guys, fantastic. Right. Thanks very much for Culture Couch Live. We'll see you again next week and have a great weekend.
Au revoir.
See you guys.